Good morning. I'm delighted to be here today among friends, to be among those who believe that freedom is the greatest treasure of mankind. And I'm often asked how chess prepared me for my current role as a human rights activist in Russia. I could answer about strategic planning, seeing the big picture, or learning from one's losses. But in chess, you have to play by the rules. In Putin's Russia, it's not exactly the same. The only rule is that they can change the rules whenever they like. That's the chess game in Russia. So, and often they do this without bothering to update the rule book. In this case, the Constitution. So let us put chess aside. President Dmitry Medvedev was here in Oslo staying in the same hotel. A remarkable coincidence. Too bad he did not join us here, because he could really have learned something valuable. But it's still Putin's Russia. We still live in Putin's Russia. Putin created this new Russian security state, this natural resource export-dependent shell of an economy. But Medvedev could, and Medvedev still can create the Medvedev era with just one stroke of his pen, by signing an order to relieve Vladimir Putin from his post as prime minister. But so far, there is no evidence that Medvedev has the desire or the will or even physical constitution to do so. There is a popular joke in my country that today there are two parties in Russia, the Putin party and the Medvedev party. The problem is that Medvedev doesn't know which one he belongs to. It's now widely recognized that Russia has become a gangster state, with Putin playing a role of a godfather. This recognition was very late in coming, both abroad and in Russia. And the mafia has been allowed to grow so strong that it cannot be directly challenged. Nor this recognition universal, with prominent figures like former European government heads, Gerhard Schröder from Germany or Paavo Lipponen from Finland, being for many years on Gazprom's payroll, and Italian Silvio Berlusconi boasting of his close personal business ties with Vladimir Putin. The question is often asked, what is the exact nature of Putin's regime? I believe sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. The great democrat. So my apologies to Charlie Chaplin. And with Mr. Schröder's picture on his desk. I'm sure he can have even collection on his wall of his trophies from Western democracies. There are feudal elements in the way all the riches of Russia are sucked up by Moscow. There are elements of Mussolini corporate fascism, with giant private monopolies working with the state and often becoming the state. It's really a bizarre combination of Karl Marx and Adam Smith. Expenses are nationalized while profits are privatized. This is KGB Incorporated. And their number one export isn't oil. It isn't gas or timber, or the weapons and nuclear technology they sell to Iran, Syria, and Venezuela. Russia's number one export today is corruption. Western companies eager to share in the looting of Russian treasury do business on the KGB terms. Instead of West reforming Russia, the corrupt state as business model has moved abroad aggressively. But this invasion is being carried out with banks, not tanks, with natural gas instead of poison gas. The situation in my country does not seem so miserable, being here in this hall with so many heroes who have seen real blood spilled in the streets, often their own blood. But the oppression in Putin's Russia is real, and it is increasing. It's normal to be detained and sentenced for peaceful opposition activities. A small peaceful rally, like the one that took place in front of the Grand Hotel in Oslo yesterday, in Russia, will be dispersed by force by the riot police, with the participants beaten, arrested, and many imprisoned for at least several days. Many political activists, opposition activists of course, and journalists have paid with their lives for standing firm for their convictions. As we approach a crisis point, the history of political transformation in Russia is not a pleasant one to contemplate. Throughout our history, transformations have been viciously ideological and often very bloody. My greatest hope in helping form the Other Russia coalition in 2005-2006 was to avoid these fates. This meant following two rules. One, insisting upon a strict policy of peaceful protest. Two, uniting across ideological lines. Non-violence is an essential element of our activity. In such an atmosphere with the public fed of a diet of propaganda about the radicals and dangerous protesters, it's absolutely essential for us not to have even one broken window. The only violence that we saw on Russian streets, what was violence of police against us. And bringing together diverse political groups has meant strange bedfellows for many of us in the opposition. Our movement has been criticized from many quarters because we accept anyone who will join us under the banners of universal human rights and the end of the Putin's regime. But by doing so, these groups have learned that we have many things in common, and most importantly, that our only chance to emerge with strong and stable Russia is real democracy. Nationalists, liberals, even communists, all marching for free and fair elections, freedom of speech, and other values of normal democratic state. St. Petersburg. And look at all the flags. Moscow. Kaliningrad. It's one of the latest. All different parties and groups represented in all different quarters of our vast country. And this is the visible result of our work. The height of this method was the formation of the National Assembly. All of these diverse groups working together in a national democratic body. Our work will continue to be done in the shadows, locked outside of the political structures, outside of so-called political mainstream. It's a slow, careful process, training our members and educating the population about the value of the vote. But we must also be alert for any opportunity. It's like running a marathon while being ready to run a 100 meters dash at any moment. It's difficult, almost impossible to imagine Putin and his oligarchs voluntarily giving up any of their power. But like any structure, the more rigid it is, the more fragile it becomes. We know the tide of history is on our side. It is not a question of if this regime will collapse, but only when, and how much damage it will do to Russia and to the rest of the world when it falls. Mr. Medvedev is Putin's selection, but he still has the chance to reduce the impact. And I can only say you're missing the boat, Dmitry. The founding document of our National Assembly pledges bans discrimination on any ethnic or religious grounds. The first affirmation reads as follows: we do not recognize the right of the state to interfere in the personal lives of its citizens, to limit their freedom of speech, assembly, mobility, choice of where to reside, or to determine their way of thinking or language that they speak. That is what we're fighting for in Russia today. Nothing more and nothing less. Thank you.